Hello, I'm Shannon Wilkerson. I was the owner of the Plaza from 1995 until 2010. I owned it when Prince came and played there. What happened was I also owned a club across town called Poets. Poets had a very busy Tuesday night. My manager that was on duty that night gave me a call and he said, listen, there are a couple of guys over here wanting to talk to you. They won't tell me who they are, and they definitely stand out. And that's the way he described them. They definitely did stand out. They were both dressed in what appeared to easily be $2,000 to $3,000 tailor-made suits. Other than that, they were both at least 6'5", 6'6", well over 300 pounds. Huge men. I said, well, this obviously is what my manager is talking about. So one of them identified themselves as Prince's road manager. And they wanted to discuss with me having a show at the Plaza, which was another club that I owned on Johnson Street. It was a big high-energy nightclub that we had concerts at sometime. So I said, sure, okay. So we went in and we sat down and we discussed it. And they said that the following night, which I knew about, the following night, Prince was playing a sold-out crowd at the Cajundome. And on that specific tour, they were seeking out big nightclubs in each town to do a after-show show. And they wanted to do it at the Plaza. So I said, well, of course, that sounds great. It was going to be $25 to get in if you had the ticket stub, and they were going to promote it at the concert at the Cajundome, or $30 if you didn't have the ticket stub. So I spent the rest of that evening putting together a staff, contacting my staff because we weren't normally open on a Wednesday night. And so I contacted everybody, and then the following morning, their road manager called me up, and he had all the sound and light requirements. And so we only had that day to locate and bring in all the sound and lights requirements. So that morning, after I got that information, I called Vince over at Vince's backstage, and he and I did a lot of concerts at the time. He was the premier sound and lights company here in Lafayette. And so I got him on the phone, and he didn't believe me. And nor did most of my staff when I called them asking them, to come to work that night. And so we went back and forth for quite some time, and he really he would not believe me until eventually I said, look, Vince, this is real. This guy is playing the Plaza tonight. I need sound and lights. I need you to stop what you're doing, get a crew together. I'm bringing you all the requirements. I need this now. And it wasn't until then that he really took it seriously. Then, of course, he became very excited. They come in, they set up all the sound and lights. We're all ready. So it's later that night, and we're waiting for the concert to end. And like I said, we weren't even normally open on that weeknight. And so there's absolutely nobody in the club. Sure enough, after the concert ended, and I had somebody contact me when the concert ended, the parking lot started filling up. We had an immediate line. No time at all, the club was completely filled. Our capacity at the club was right around 1,200. We went well over that. We're closed down now, so I'm not that worried about the fire marshal coming in and giving me grief about it. But we went well over that. We were completely filled. It's getting late, and I talked to the road manager about this. I told him, listen, in Lafayette, we have to close at 2 in the morning. How long will he perform? And he said, well, he normally performs somewhere around an hour for these after show shows. I said, okay, well, bear that in mind, because we have to close at 2 o'clock. And so the show has got to start. If he's going to play an hour, he's got to start at 1 in the morning for this to work out. He said, no problem. Maybe about 11:30 or so, I said, okay, well, the band is going to arrive any minute. Is there a back door? Sure. So we went to the back of the Plaza, which is actually like a service alley. And of course, I've got all my security because we needed to provide adequate security, in-house security. And then they have their own security there too. And also, they had marshals that were showing up. 3 to 4 limousines pulled up. And this was just the band. And I asked him, I said, well, is Prince... By the way, you couldn't say Prince at the time. Every time you said Prince, everybody that worked within his organization stopped you immediately. At the time, he was in the middle of a legal dispute with a record company, and you had to refer to him as the artist. You could not say what they called the P word. I said, is he with them right now? He said, no, this is just the band. I said, okay. So these band members start. Now, I hadn't been to the concert at the Cajundome, so I had no idea what to expect. And so the band members all start to come out of these limousines, and I'd never seen anything like it. We had done several shows at the Plaza, and I had done shows at other clubs, and But every one of these musicians, they stood out like no group I had ever seen before. Every one of them looked like they were wearing at least $3,000 to $4,000 worth of clothes. I mean, tailored perfectly, bright colors, sparkles everywhere, big high heels. One girl that was, I believe, the bass player in the band, and that was very unusual at the time for a girl to be in a premier band like that. She had a big giant afro. She dressed with big bell bottoms. Everybody looked fantastic. We bring them to the VIP room, which was on the other end of the club from where the back door was. So now the band is up into the VIP room. They're drinking, they're hanging around. They're very professional, very polite. Now it's getting a little bit later, and Prince isn't there yet. And I'm starting to sweat a little bit, so I approached the manager. He said, yeah, he's going to be here in a minute. Why don't we just go on down and wait for him? So we go back to the same area. The whole time, the club is filled with these people, and they're excited, and they're anxious, and you can feel the tension in the air. And so we go to the back. One more limousine pulls up, and it just sits there. And we're sitting there waiting, and the doors are closed. There's no movement. There's no nothing. And we're just sitting there waiting, and I said, well, is that him? Is he here? He said, yeah, he doesn't get out until he's ready. I said, okay. So we're waiting, and sure enough, about 5 or 10 minutes later, the two front doors open. One of the guys was the same gentleman that was at Poets waiting for me, and then another guy. And same thing, great big guys. Everybody's dressed in tailor-made suits. They look like $1 million. And they get out, they come and open the door, and Prince steps out of the limousine. You know, you hear about these moments where everybody just kind of stands. Now, there's about 30 people standing around the back of the plaza because of all the security, the police, and whatnot. And you hear about these moments where it's like this awe moment, and that's what it was. Everybody just kind of went quiet. Prince gets out of the limousine, and he is in all white. He's got a white hat on. He's got sunglasses. He's got white bell-bottom pants, tall white platform shoes, a white shiny silk shirt, a white coat, long coat like tails, with a high collar, and all down each side of his arm and across the collar, or he's encrusted with big jewel-like looking sparkles. And he's got a walking cane, also white. The top of the walking cane is encrusted with jewels, and he just gets out. He doesn't look left, he doesn't look right, he just walks straight forward. And I remember just thinking, this guy really knows how to play the role that he has put himself in. He was rock star. There was a staircase that led to what was the VIP room, and along the side of the club was a balcony that overlooked the dance floor and the main room. We started walking across that balcony, and since he was all in white, he stood out, obviously. And by the time we got about halfway to the VIP room, everybody in the club had seen him. And the place just erupted into an enormous roar of cheers. It was fantastic. So we go into the VIP room, and he's standing over there with his people. So I went approaching him. You know, I was just being friendly, trying to be a gracious host, and I got about 4 steps away from him, and I was stopped quickly by a few guys, and they said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm the owner of the club. I just wanted to introduce myself. And they said, well, you can't approach the artist. You can't just walk up to him and talk to him. I said, okay. You know, and it was kind of getting a little, okay, guys, come on, give us a break. You know, and sure enough, the manager came over. He said, okay, I'm going to bring you over to introduce you. So I went over, I introduced myself. He said hello. He was very gracious, very polite, very professional, but quick. That was it. You only got a few seconds of his attention, and then that was it. You were dismissed. We're kind of waiting around, and I'm glancing over to him. Now I'm getting nervous because it's getting late. Because as I mentioned, we got to close at 2 o'clock. It's coming up on 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm looking over, and I'm looking around, I'm looking over at him, and the same manager came up to me, and he said, look, you can't look at the artist. You know, he doesn't like, you can't look at him. Also, when I was being introduced to him, they told me beforehand, don't look him in the eye, which I thought was very ironic, kind of crazy, because he had dark sunglasses on. I don't know how I could have looked him in the eye if I wanted to, but they said, you can't look him in the eye, don't look him in the eye. Okay. So I'm looking around, and so I approached the manager. I said, look, it's getting kind of late. I've got like 1,500 people down here. They're getting antsy, and if the show doesn't go on, y'all can get in your airplane and go home. I got to kind of carry the baggage here in Lafayette if this doesn't go down right. He said, don't worry. So a few minutes later, the band, without any notice, it was just like they all knew. They all just walk out of the VIP room without Prince. They go down onto the stage, get their instruments, and they start playing. They just start playing this open jam, and it was fantastic. And I remember thinking, wow, these guys, this band really lives up to their hype. They look like a band for Prince, but they played like a band for Prince too, because they were just spot on perfect. And after about 5 minutes, Prince walked out onto the stage. The club went absolutely crazy. He performed only, as I recall, 2 songs, but they were long songs. They played each song in like a jam style, a long open jam style. It was fantastic. I remember just being amazed at the whole appearance of them, their professionalism, and then their performance even excelled all that. So he played right up until 2 o'clock. He didn't talk much. In between those few songs, he just said a few things, but they really stepped up to the plate and performed just like you would expect the best rock band to do. After the song ended, he left, walked right out the back door, got into his limousine, and left. He was the best rock star I'd ever seen. And I'm fortunate to have been able to see a lot of concerts when I was younger. He commanded 100% of the attention all the time. He was the perfect rock star.